Most people believe rich people are smarter than everyone else. They think wealth comes from intelligence, talent, or luck. But the truth is very different. The biggest difference between rich people and everyone else is not money. It is how they think about money. Poor people think money is something you earn. Middle class thinks money is something you save. Rich people think money is something you design. They do not ask, how can I make more money? They ask, how can money work for me even while I sleep? This way of thinking changes everything. Rich people understand something very early in life. Time is more valuable than money. Money can be replaced. Time cannot. So instead of selling their time for money, they build systems that save time and create income automatically when they work. They are not working for today. They are working for 10 years from now. That is why they are never in a hurry. They are patient. They are calm. They are focused on long-term results. Another difference is how they see risk. Most people avoid risk completely. They stay in safe jobs. They avoid investments. They fear losing money. Rich people do not avoid risk. They manage it. They do not gamble. They calculate. They study numbers. They study history. They study cycles. And then they take slow, controlled risks with very large rewards. They understand that playing safe forever is the riskiest strategy of all, because inflation slowly destroys savings, technology destroys jobs, and time punishes anyone who stays still. Another important difference is how they think about income. Most people focus on one source of income: a salary, a business, a job. Rich people build multiple streams. Some income is active, some income is passive, some income is temporary, some income is permanent. If one stream fails, the others continue. They never depend on a single source, because dependence is the enemy of freedom. They also think very differently about spending. Poor people spend to feel rich. Middle class spends to look successful. Rich people spend to become more powerful. They buy assets, not symbols. They invest in businesses, in real estate, in data, in systems, in networks. They avoid buying things that lose value. They avoid impressing people who do not matter. They understand something very important. Luxury is expensive, but freedom is priceless. Another key difference is how they use debt. Most people fear debt, or they use it to buy liabilities, cars, phones, clothes, vacations. Rich people use debt as a tool. They borrow money to buy assets, assets that produce income, assets that grow in value. So instead of debt making them poorer, debt makes them richer. They let tenants pay mortgages. They let businesses pay loans. They let cash flow erase liabilities. Debt becomes leverage, and leverage becomes acceleration. Another major difference is how they think about ownership. Most people work for owners. They build systems for owners. They create value for owners. Rich people want to be the owner. Not always of companies. Sometimes of contracts. Sometimes of licenses. Sometimes of platforms. Sometimes of distribution. They earn from transactions they never touch. From deals they never negotiate. From work they never perform. Because ownership is the source of power. Another important mindset is how they think about failure. Poor people fear failure. Middle class hides failure. Rich people study failure. They expect mistakes. They plan for losses. They design recovery before problems appear. They understand that every wealthy person failed many times before succeeding. But failure never destroyed them, because they never risked everything on one decision. They always kept reserves. They always kept options. They always kept control. Another silent difference is how they choose their environment. Most people choose friends based on comfort. Rich people choose circles based on influence. They spend time with builders, investors, executives, creators, dealmakers, not because they are famous, but because ideas travel faster in powerful rooms. Information arrives earlier. Opportunities appear quietly. Deals happen privately. Wealth rarely begins in public. It begins in closed conversations. Another key mindset is patience. Poor people want money now. Middle class wants stability now. Rich people want systems forever. They are willing to wait. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Because they understand one simple law. Compounding rewards patience more than intelligence. Small returns repeated for decades become enormous wealth. That is why most millionaires are not young. They are not famous. They are not visible. They are quiet, consistent, persistent. Another powerful difference is how they think about status. Poor people chase status. Middle class protects status. Rich people ignore status. They do not need approval. They do not seek validation. They do not compare themselves. They compare only one thing: who they are today versus who they were last year. And finally, the most important mindset of all: rich people think in systems. Everyone else thinks in events. They do not ask why something happened. They ask what structure caused it. They do not chase opportunities. They build platforms that attract opportunities. They do not look for luck. They design environments where luck appears naturally. They understand something very deep. Money does not come from effort. It comes from structure. It comes from ownership, from leverage, from patience, from discipline, and from thinking differently long before money ever appears. If you begin to think this way, your income may not change tomorrow, but your future will. Because wealth does not start in your bank account, it starts in your mindset. And once your thinking changes, everything else eventually follows.